So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. There he is.
Bunch of bullshit, man.
Yeah,
it just cripple small businesses and cripple the economy. And
like I said, I'm working out of my garage. I'm working out of my garage. Like I got.
What's up?
You gotta do.
I haven't seen you in so long.
I'm not talking to her today.
Oh,
Corey.
it's your fault.
Don't
You start with me. Don't even...
Yeah.
Don't even start.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this, guys.
For sure.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
It's amazing. We don't, like I said, we record everything, so say whatever we want. We can edit anything after. We'll never air anything you guys don't. If we say something you don't want it on there,
I don't think they're really. You never met Corey, right?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't.
That's you over here.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, Nasty, there's a history with goaltending too, with your dad and I hadn't met you before, so that was kind of what I was telling Kim. I was very interested in. Your dad was with the Firebirds, I think just before my dad got there. So.
Oh, okay.
So there's, like I said, there's a bit of a connection there. So.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah. So we are recording. We can kind of just fire right into it if that's cool with you guys. So
how is your dad? Speaking of,
he's hanging in there. He's down in North Carolina.
Yeah,
hanging at the bars every night. Thinks
hitting on all the ladies.
Bar and grill.
He doesn't understand that 25-year-olds just aren't gonna date a 70-year-old man unless he's got $1 billion.
I was gonna say Sunlight.
You met our dads?
Yeah, well, hey, if he needs a little bit more cake, I told him before he can do that.
I don't know. Your dad adding more kink. I don't know. That seems a little.
He's a mess. That's for sure.
Tell him I said hi.
I will for sure.
He's got. When he comes up, I want to see him.
He's coming up next weekend for that alumni fantasy week, so he'll be around.
Oh, nice.
We know you'll never show.
Oh, please.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I witnessed Sudsy giving a probably 27-year-old girl flowers at the Flyers alumni golf tournament 2 weeks ago. And then Jesse Bowleries was mowing his lawn right after.
He was not happy. I'm just gonna go home, Biff. That's what he calls me, Biff. He's like, I'm taking off. I'm like, what? I'm like, you just told me you had like 8 drinks in the golf cart with some chick and you're going to just leave. Well, I'm going to wait a little while, but I think I'm going to go home. I'm like,
I'll go wait a little while.
Just get a ride back.
Where did he get the flowers from? Is he cutting them out?
He probably picked them at the golf course.
Off the DuPont Country Club there, yeah.
It's like Bill Murray and Caddyshack out there
dude.
whacking flowers.
They weren't the cheap flowers either.
He needs help for sure. That's
so funny.
That's why I blame my issues with Elvis is definitely my dad's fault.
Passing it right down.
Oh yeah, skip me. I'm normal.
Yeah, right.
Elvis, I mean, the world's got to watch out for that one.
Oh yeah,
he's going to be taking over.
He just had his mullet touched up last night, so
did he?
He's really feeling it. Yeah.
And he's still playing goal too, right?
Yeah. He won yesterday. He's doing all right with it. I kind of don't really want him to be a goalie. Sorry, guys.
Hey, not a fan of me.
He's a goalie. I think he's a goalie.
He's doing well with it. He's better. He's actually better in net than he is out, but it's because he hasn't skated enough out.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, but his stuff like blowing kisses to the fans and is like,
who are you blowing kisses to? All the ladies. Where?
Just been hanging around your dad.
Yeah, well, I know exactly.
So Grandpa's handing out flowers. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
That's awesome. So yeah, I just wanted to, like I said, I've got to hang out with Riley a couple times over at some charity events over here. So there's a couple good stories that he told me, and I'm over here in St. Catharines in Ontario. So I'm in Leafland. Leafland over here. So it's nice that I bleed orange. I love the Flyers, but because I'm force-fed Leafs over here. So
yeah,
I did have a good story that Riley told me once, and I don't know, Nasty, if you've heard it, when he actually came to the Leaf camp. Did you ever?
Yeah, I know it, but it's a good one. It's a good one.
It is good because
I don't think I know it.
Well, Kim, Darcy Tucker is a big name, local guy. He married Shane Corson's sister. So the Leafs had they had Ty Domi, they had Belak, they had a really tough team. And I found a video one time of Riley's very first time. I never knew he went to the Leaf camp. And anyway, I want Riley, if you could tell us a little bit about it and what kind of went on there with Travis Green and everybody.
Yeah. Well, it was, I guess I was 20 years old, and I had another year of eligibility for juniors, but I had kind of made the decision I was going to be a fighter, right? So I went into that off season as basically taking on this role of fighting. So I signed I signed a tryout or whatever the hell it was, like with the Maple Leafs there. And I was going to that camp to obviously to fight and to make a statement. So it lands up being the first shift of they call it like the blue and white game, right? The inter squad scrimmage, and hopped over the bench and just had like this perfect hit lined up, and it landed up being Travis Green. I just crushed him and landed up splitting his head open or whatever. It was actually a clean hit, but sure enough, like Darcy Tucker's cruises over and wants to fight. So I was like, geez, I'm like, this couldn't have worked out any better, right? So I'm licking my chops. And then, Tucker's a tough guy, but he's like 185 pounds. Like he's not.
How old were you at this point?
I was 20. Yeah, so it was my first year. I could have played. Well, I landed up playing pro that year, but I could have also gone back to juniors if it didn't work out. So Tux comes over and we square off. He's slicking his hair back, and then I just went in and just like two-punched the guy, and he obviously was not happy, and it was all over like Sportsnet, and I get my phone blown up from my buddies back home. But so that was the first shift of that first scrimmage. I finished the game, and I was in the showers after that scrimmage, and I heard a bunch of barking outside and this and that, and I'm gonna fucking kill this guy, blah blah blah. So I come out and the towel off, and Domi's there, and he's like, "Oh, your buddy was just in here. He wanted to fight you." I'm like, "What do you mean, my buddy?" He's like, "Tux." He's like, "You wanted to round two with you." I'm like, in the locker room. So I guess they diffused it. Like Shane Corson, I think Belak might have been involved. Domi, I didn't exactly see it. I heard it. He was obviously not very happy about what happened, and his ego got the best of him there, and just like he wanted to come after the young guy that's like a nobody. So that was kind of it. I had one more run.
And he actually wanted to fight you in the locker room afterwards?
Yeah, well, he came in, so like he was all pissed off that that I disrespected Travis Green, and obviously pumped him, and they were pushing it all across. It's Maple Leafs training camp, so it's all across. The news is Canadian news is all hockey and sports, and so he wasn't happy about the whole thing. So it was that, and then I had one more run-in with him. Actually, we were staying. It was in Cops Coliseum. It was
in Hamilton.
In Hamilton, there, yeah. So we were staying in that hotel that's hooked up to Cops Coliseum. I forget what it is. Yeah. But I was waiting for an elevator. I think it was the next day. And sure enough, who comes cruising around the corner? Darcy Tucker. He's all like giddy, and then he sees me, and he like looks like he's seen a ghost or something. Got all weird, and then just like 180 and walked away. I was like, dude, I'm like, I was like, get over yourself, man. It's like it's a hockey. It's a hockey play. I mean,
come on.
I loved it because and I heard it got diffused pretty quickly because some of the boys are like, hey, have you look at the size of this guy? Like, Tux, you may not want to go round two.
I was as big as I ever was, man. I was all juiced up in the summer.
I wonder why. I wonder how you were so big, Rob.
Oh, man, yeah. But I ended up signing a deal with St. John's Maple Leafs at the time. That's how I, my first year in, partially in the American League. Spent most of that year in the Central Hockey League in Memphis. So it was the Memphis River Kings in the Central Hockey League. But yeah, I think that that fight partly was responsible for me turning pro. Like I said, I could have gone back to juniors for another year, but I was way too big to be a hockey player at the time. It was, again, I was such an idiot and just doing what I could with what the resources I had. It was, just get big and strong and have the mentality to go fight guys, but it wasn't very functional, but served this purpose, I guess. It works. Yeah. I should have pumped the guy. I should have pumped the guy at my weight right now, I mean,
but that was funny because I was telling Kim earlier too, Joe Cadillac comes up a lot, and at the Flyers 40th anniversary. And I don't know if I met you, Nasty. I might have passing by if you were there at the 40th, but that's Joe Cadillac brought me in 3:00 in the afternoon. And that's when I got to, Riley was the only guy in there. I'm like, man, this guy's a beast. He's here early. He's getting jabbed. I'm like, I love this guy.
I couldn't even take a nap, Corey. I couldn't take a nap in the afternoons. This guy kept showing up at 3. I'm like, Riles, game 7 tonight, Yeah, I got coffee. He's got the coffee, the sooties. He's got everything.
Well, I fell in love because I was Craig Berube, Dave Brown, I love those guys. And then, at the 40th anniversary, I got to meet Riles. I was like, wow. And then when I actually saw it, his playing style is like, oh, this guy's the best. So it was just kind of funny. And then, like I said, I'm, Tucker's the hometown hero and all these guys. And then when I went back and researched, I was like, holy shit, he went into camp and did some business. So I didn't know St. John signed you after that.
Yeah. I think I landed up living in St. John's there for a month. I think I only played 7 games that season. So like I said, I spent most of the year in Memphis. There was their affiliate. Doug Shedden was the coach that year, and I think he landed up coaching St. John's the next year. But yeah, it was a cool experience for sure. I mean, but I wanted to get the hell out of the Central Hockey League. I tell you that.
It's a jungle down
league.
there.
So how long after that did you get connected with the Flyers organization?
So I played that full season. That was my first year pro. Second year, I went to Columbus Blue Jackets training camp and almost lost my eye. I landed up in Syracuse for kind of a similar situation there. I think 7, 8, 9 games or whatever it was. And then and spent most of the year in the East Coast Hockey League in Dayton. And there was the following year, the 04-05, the previous lockout. I went back to that Central Hockey League team. I just kind of signed like a contract with them. And then I was there for 4 or 5 days, and Hexie called me up and signed me to a PTO. And I met the team in Hartford. I think it was game 3 or something of that 04-05 season. And then the rest is kind of history. I landed up signing 4 professional tryout agreements throughout that season, 25 gamers, and we won the Calder Cup, and the rest is kind of history. Yeah.
And that's when you guys met?
I was just going to say, how did you guys meet that year?
We were in Hartford. We were playing in Hartford, Connecticut, and Homer said, "Hey, got this guy coming in. You're probably gonna like him, but he's got some cement hands. He likes to toss him a little bit." No, but I met Riles, and we hit it off literally right when we met. But I've told this story 100 times. I hope he got there. I got his equipment. He needed to get back to eat lunch with the boys and have a nap. You didn't play that night. You weren't in the lineup, but still he was gonna. I can't remember if he took warm up or not. But either way, I got his gear hung up and checking everything out. Then I pull his sticks out, and I said, "Holy fuck! What is this guy doing?" This stick was as straight as could be. I'm like, is he right-handed? Is he left-handed? And I said something to Homer. I said, I don't think it matters. It's on the ice a lot, with his gloves, No, I'm kidding, but I always kid him about that. It was a tough stick. We got him. We got him squared away.
It was a 2-piecer. The one piece, he didn't have a 1-piece yet.
He didn't even have a 1-piece yet, and that's when everyone was transitioning into.
I'm coming out of the Central Hockey League, man. They don't have a budget, man. I was working with what I had.
Well, you switched it up after that?
We fixed him up. We got him fixed up that next week.
Got the blowtorch out, gave him a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, I was gonna do that for him, but I didn't know if he was a lefty or a righty because of the way the play was. So I didn't want to do it before I talked to him.
Well, hey, smart goalies never know on a backhand where the puck's going.
That's right. That's why Sidney Crosby sticks.
Yeah, I was gonna say Crosby.
Pretty much straight.
Are they?
Straight. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's his sticks pretty much like Riles.
Yeah, it didn't quite translate skill wise, but
little different in the skill department. But you guys know Riley was tucking 30 in juniors, though. He was
he could play.
He could play.
Yeah.
And I think that's a misconception with a lot of tough guys that play in NHL. they actually can play hockey and they know the game. You know, it's just some guys, Riles has said it 100 times, you have to pick your best way to make it to that level. And to his credit, I mean, this guy went through hell and back, going through all those leagues, and he made it, man. There's not a lot of guys that can say that they made it from where he started. So
if there was one thing I could change, though, it would have been to have focused on hockey a little bit more. You know, the battle I always found myself in was like the battle of like, you know, of say being the enforcer and fully embodying that, right? And then and then not thinking I'm something I'm not. You know what I mean? Because I've seen it how many guys have we seen Nasty come through, say Flyers organization or other organizations where they kind of forget what got them there. You know, and in juniors, I put up some numbers, but I was never drafted, you know, and my entry point was being a fighter. So I always struggled with like, do I try and play a little bit, or do I just like act like a jackass like all the time and like fully embody this thing? And then I landed up being a jackass all the time, where I just like, you know, completely ignored the puck for the most part, and just like, you know, was more worried about yelling at guys, hitting guys, and starting shit than actually like kind of, you know, playing the game of hockey, which I, you know, enjoyed playing my whole life. But that being said, I think, you know, probably what was the reason why the Flyers were attracted to me is that, you know, they knew what they were going to get out of me. They knew that I was fully, you know, signed up for that position, that they were going to put me on the ice and I was going to try and be a player. So there was, you know, there probably was a silver lining in there. But if I can go back in time, I probably would have worked on my skill a little bit more. I think I probably could have maybe prolonged my career a little bit, but should have, what I could have.
But I have quite a few of those.
And that's what I said. Yeah. A lot of the guys coming up, I always tell, because I have a lot of, you know, U16 guys going into the OHL draft, or, you know, going to the States, but they're all so good. And when you get to a certain level, I always tell them what's going to separate you from everybody else. You know, taking the body, you know, finishing your check, something that, you know, get noticed out there. Kind of like when you went into Toronto, it was like, hey, I'm here and here's what I'm going to do. But yeah, once, like I said, I've, you know, always loved the enforcer role, and you guys always could play the game, but a lot of the guys had to make that transition to, okay, what's going to keep me here and what's going to set me apart from the other guy, you know? So that's what I loved. That's why I loved you guys. My dad always like, why do you like the fighters? Why do you like the enforcers? You're an idiot. I'm like, and later on in life, I was like, because they were the hardest working guys. They were the guys that were the hardest working. And like I said, I wasn't a very big guy. And, you know, the name on my back was, you know, I had to work, you know, I didn't have to work as hard, but once I got to a certain level, I wasn't a very big guy, but I had to work my ass off. And, you know, eventually, I wasn't very big. So it was like, you know, I didn't want to be a goalie, and I blame guys like, you know, Riley and Dave Brown and those guys, because that's what I wanted to be. So I only played goal for a couple of years when I was younger. So Nasty, your boy might transition. My kid played goal for a year and he just hung up the pads. He's like, screw this. I want to play forward. So you might have some luck there.
Yeah.
He's hoping.
As long as he's having fun, he has fun when he's in the game. He's having fun afterwards. But then it's like the next day, oh, we're going to practice. Can I skate out today? You know, and then I'm like, no, because you committed to be the goalie for this team. His other team, he gets to play out a bit. So, but he's fine once he gets in his gear. He's watched the players for so long. He thinks he's doing all the preparation that they do. He's doing this Hellebuck thing that he does in Winnipeg, and he's trying to do Carter's balls off the wall, and he's hitting himself in the forehead. Let's just get dressed, LB.
It's so funny though. Like, he's so young. Like, what he picks up, you know, and the stuff you don't even think they notice.
Yeah, he doesn't forget. Corey, I tell you a funny story. So he loves Kim's dad, Bernie.
Yeah.
So forever, because he had signed a picture for him, and Elvis has gone through all my books from all the years from my dad, and then all the years I was there. Yeah. So he always sees Bernie with a mask on. Okay. So even if he's seen Bernie in a picture, he may not have realized it was him. So the first time he meets him, we're at a game, and I'm like, oh, LV, hey, there's your guy. There's Bernie. Let's say hi. And he's like, and Bernie's standing 5 feet in front of him. And he's like, where is he? And just, you know, He's not 30, and he's not 30 anymore, right? And Bernie's got the gray hair, he's got the beard, and I'm like, right there. And he's like, that's not Bernie, Dad. And he's like backing up, and I'm like, and so Bernie comes over, starts talking to him, and then Elvis is like, oh, this is great. I five him, and stuff. And he's like,
that's not Bernie.
He goes, Daddy, he looks a little older than he does with his mask on. I said, well, you can't see his face. Like,
and that was back in what, like 76?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
He's got no idea. I'm like, dude. I mean, then I got to realize, okay, I think he was only 4 at the time, but he's got his picture on his wall in his room. It's
I love the video of him that you sent me of when he's wearing the t-shirt, the prawn t-shirt, and he's like, so cute. I love that.
Yeah, he loves Bernie.
That's good. Did your dad have any masks back in the day? I know my dad, now this stuff is worth so much money, like these auctions and stuff. And my dad was like, I don't know, we got traded. We threw it in the bag if it showed up at the next place. Like he said he'd show up and, oh yeah, the trainer painted it. Or did your dad have any masks, or did he
he had, so when he was young, like with the Firebirds we were talking about, he had one of those thin masks. That got stolen from him at his golf shop, actually, believe it or not. I don't know, but it sucks because I would have liked to have it just for Elvis to have. It was pretty cool. But then he went to the helmet with the cage like everyone did when he was actually practicing every day. And then he went to the normal mask, which he does have those. I actually had him a mask made for Father's Day a couple years ago with all the teams he had ever dressed for.
And that's cool.
Pretty cool, man. I mean, there's a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams, but unfortunately, he lost that one mask. I wish I had.
That's luck.
Yeah.
How about when they called him? Didn't they call him to back up? Was it Hershey?
Oh yeah, he actually
played in Florida too, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he played actual minutes in every league except the National Hockey League, but he was dressed to back up twice with the Flyers. And almost
was he the equipment manager when they needed him for a backup, though, right?
Yeah. He was. So a funny story. I think I was 17, and obviously I grew up in North Carolina, so I would visit Dad like 3-4 times a year, and I just happened to flip the TV on. It was a 1:00 game. Doc Emmerich and Bill Clement were doing it. It was on Sports Channel, and they were playing the Devils. And I turned the TV on. I'm like, oh, sweet. There's a game on. I'm going to watch it instead of go outside. And all of a sudden, there's a picture of Sudsy in his Maine Mariners gear. And I'm like, why is that picture up there? Like, Mike Emmerich's like, position or today, this backup due to an injury and warm up. I think it was to Ken Reggett. Yeah, it was Ken Reggett. Ken Reggett took a puck in the neck. So Sudsy's literally in his gear, taping ankles and doing all that stuff. So I see this and I'm like, oh my God. So I had the number to the Spectrum, his office, the medical, because back then, you were medical and equipment. You did it all back then. Yeah. So it's because it's like 87. And I call and he actually answers. He's like, locker room. And I'm like, Dad, what's going on? Like, are you playing? He goes, Biff, I got to call you back. And he hangs up on me.
I'm like, stretching.
And he was, so after the game, he called, he apologized to me. He said, listen, I thought I was going to have to play because Pete Peters shouldn't have even been backing up because he had some issues with his groin, but he was cramping. And my dad's like, this game, it was about 8 games left of the season. And he's like, we needed to win to make the playoffs. He goes, if they throw me in there and I get shelled, like, can you imagine? Like, I won't be able to come out of my house. So he was like so nervous. That's why he didn't even want to talk to me.
His heart must have been like,
oh my God. He said he was sweating the whole time. Every time Pete would make a save and go down, he's like, please get up. Please get up. He didn't even, it was funny. Doc Emmerich said he's not positioned himself at the bench, but he is ready in his gear. And I'm like, you're such a wuss, man. Go sit down there with your gear on. He's like, I was ready to have a heart attack. He's like,
oh my
God, last thing I wanted. But he did play in every other league. He actually got minutes. He actually has the worst goals against average in the American Hockey League at 60. And they rounded it off to 60 because he was late for like 48 seconds, and they got a 3-on-1 buried, and he turned around. I guess it just broke his stick. He was so pissed off.
That's hilarious. Did you play Nasty? Did you play hockey coming up? No,
we didn't really have. I didn't have, like, now in North Carolina, hockey's huge. Like, there's rinks everywhere, teams, but we didn't have it. So I would only play hockey if I came up here. I played street hockey. I had a bunch of sticks, and me and my buddies would play as good as we could. We don't know. we were playing. It wasn't like anyone was any good.
No,
I remember I don't remember, but I remember reading something when they dressed your dad and they interviewed my dad and said, "How does he look?" And he's like, he's like,
Hey, Kim, I can tell you exactly what he said. So they did a special on my dad. It was during the playoffs against Pittsburgh, and they were showing that Hexie didn't like to skate in the morning skates, so Sudsy's in net, but he actually practiced every day. So anyway, they're showing Sudsy in net, and obviously he's 5'5". He's not a big man.
Yeah.
But they're asking all the players, and Ronnie Sutter was probably the nicest, because you guys know Rich and Ron. They're just the nicest people. And Ron's like, well, he's not real big in there, but he really tries hard. And then they go to talk, and Talk's like, oh, you come down the ice and all you see is net. You have to score. But so they get Bernie on. He's the goalie coach, and he says, "Excuse me if I don't do his voice perfectly," but he goes, "Well, as you know, I'm employed as the Flyers goaltender instructor, but miracles I don't perform."
That is so good.
I thought that was the best.
I could totally see him saying that. You did the accent, actually.
Yeah, that was good. That was
good.
It was so funny.
But miracles, my dad's so quick with that stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
Riley, when you were growing up, you're from Winnipeg, who was players that you looked up to? Who were the teams that you liked coming up when you were a kid?
Winnipeg Jets and Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. So it was in the era of, Dale Howardchuk and, Scott Arneal was
he played in Buffalo.
My favorite player. Yeah. He landed up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I won a Scott Arneal jersey. I wore number 11 my whole youth hockey because I won this jersey. I had no idea who this guy was, but Winnipeg Jets. My parents had season tickets.
Oh wow!
To the Jets, and then eventually they had some decent players come through, like Teemu Selanne and Phil Housley, and had some legitimate players. But also I loved, we say Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier. There was still obviously a lot of juice there, but man, it was culture.
I loved Sean Cronin. When Sean Cronin was in Winnipeg, he was a beast. I loved him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But, Ty Domi. I mean, before I even ever thought I would be fighting and all that, Domi was a big name in Winnipeg, obviously. Chris King, Mike Eagles, guys like that. Jim Kite, you remember those guys? But that was like, I had no intention of being good
night Kite.
But it's funny how they kind of come circling back around, and I'm in training camp with Domi, and line up. If I had to, I would have fought him. He's on my team, thank God. But
that's funny.
No use fighting Domi.
No, exactly. That head, how you
right hurt your hand. Like, get hit in the head 15 times, and he wouldn't even have a mark. He's like Josh Gratz.
He's like Gratz.
Well, I love when we had Jeff Chikrin on, and he fought him a few times, and of course, Jeff off the ice is the most mild-mannered person you'll ever meet, and then he gets on the fighting, and then his son ends up rooming with Ty's.
That's right,
son,
Max and Jacob roomed together.
How you said it, like, all comes around. But so you, Nasty, you were with the Phantoms, and then what year did you come to the Flyers?
So we won the Cup the lockout year, which was probably the best year American Hockey League's ever had, with all the players. If you look at the teams, they had most of their young talent with their American League team playing pro. Bergeron was in Providence.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, obviously we
stacked.
The whole league. It was just a great league that year.
What year was that?
That was 2004-05.
Oh, so you weren't with them in '98? No, because you would have been.
No, I was still with the Phantoms. Well, I was with the Phantoms when we won in '98 as well.
Okay, yeah. So you were there for both Calder Cups.
For both, yeah.
Yeah.
And then after the lockout year, I was one more year, 2006. So 2007, I got the head job with the Flyers.
Okay.
So yeah, it's funny how it kind of all came together. Long story short, is I had actually agreed and took the job in LA with the Kings because Dean Lombardi left the Flyers as a scout and went to LA, and we were playing basketball outside. Corey, you probably don't know this, but Homer, we had a basketball goal outside, and there wasn't any. You couldn't say, "Oh no, I can't play." If he came down and said, "Hey, we're playing hoops at 1," in the 104-degree weather,
you're out there.
You're playing. Doesn't matter. And of course, he's got 3 T-shirts on, a sweatshirt. Disgusting. And when he started losing, he would take it all off and be like, "It's slime time," and it's the most disgusting thing ever. And I was the one that had to guard the man. I played college basketball, believe it or not. So, I didn't mind playing basketball. It was just everyone else hated it because I lost some teeth and people had black eyes. It got ugly.
It was like prison rules.
Prison rule. Well, it was just because he thought he could play basketball the way you play hockey, come in with the elbows. So anyway, there's a million stories. We got to have 4 shows on that. But anyway, he comes out, we're kind of shooting around. I think we're playing 3-on-3, and he goes, "Oh, our buddy Dino, he got the job. He's the president, GM." And I'm like, "Where?" He's like, "LA. You didn't see it?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Well, did you call him, or should I call him?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll go call him." So he literally walks back in the door, and we're out there shooting around. It's been like 10 minutes. He comes back out. He goes, "All right, let's play." Doesn't say anything. And I'm like, looking at him like, well, did you get a hold? So we literally play the first game, and my mind, I can't even concentrate. I'm like, why wouldn't he say anything to me? So after the first game, he's like, "All right, run it back." And guys are grabbing water. I'm like, "Hey, did you talk to Dean?" He goes, "Oh yeah, you got the job."
No.
I'm like, "What? What do you mean I got?" He said, "Yeah, you're his guy. He's going to call you later tonight." And I'm like, "You couldn't walk out and tell me that? You make me play a full game?" And he starts laughing. He goes, "Oh, relax. You got the job. Don't worry about it." And then one thing led to another. I went to the World Championships that summer with Team USA. And the last day I was there, I was in Latvia, Riga, Latvia. I got a call from Homer, and he said, "Did you sign your deal yet?" And I said, "No, I'm actually heading back tomorrow, then flying to LA Wednesday." He goes, "Just come see me before you do." And I ended up getting offered to stay here, which is what I wanted to do, and worked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Paul's the best. I love him.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Could have had a couple cups or in LA.
Yeah, that's true.
Let me tell you the worst thing was, so I called Dino, and I'm like, "Thank you so much for the opportunity." I mean, obviously I was ready to come there, but I feel like I bleed black and orange just from all the years, and I really didn't want to leave. And I thanked him, and so we always would keep in touch. But he calls me the one day. He goes, "Oh, how's Philly?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. We're just goofing off." This is still right before camp. He goes, "Oh, it's too bad. I got these 2 tickets to the Playboy Mansion for tonight. I guess I'll give them to the." He goes, "I guess I'll just give them to the new equipment guy instead of you." But I'll let him. I'll tell him to let you know how it was. And I'm like, "MFer."
You're like, "Thanks a lot, Paul."
Yeah.
Right. Well, Nasty, you must be very good at what you do, because you've been in the business for a long time, and like I said, and are you? Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
What's that?
The Olympics, you get to listen to that, and
that was awesome. That was my favorite thing I think I ever did.
I was going to ask you, was it? And I mean, that has to be like a huge honor. Like, how do they even decide who they pick?
Brian Burke called me. I literally was just shocked. I was stunned.
Wow.
I was so happy. I had worked a couple years. I had done a couple world championships, and I must have fooled them somehow, and they thought I was a hard worker or something. And I ended up getting that call in the summer, and I was just, I couldn't believe it when I got there. I think I've told everybody I know that I remember walking out to the bench for the first game and just looking around and seeing the Olympic rings everywhere.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't playing, I'm a pigeon. I'm like the equipment guy, but still, you're there, you're a part of it, and it was amazing. It was the best 2 weeks I think I've ever had.
It's probably surreal. Like, did it even kick in? Yeah.
You're like, look at her. You can't believe what's going on. And, the world championships were really cool, but it's nothing compared to the Olympics. I mean, that was,
and that was in Vancouver, right?
It was.
Yeah.
And you Canadians, Corey.
Well, the Olympics are going on right now, and like, I didn't realize,
Well, they're actually over now.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the worst viewership ever.
I bet.
The Olympics, from what I've
read.
Yeah, it said the least amount of people watching the Olympics was this one.
Wow, I wonder why.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
I didn't watch much, to be honest, and I
didn't either.
No,
maybe
I heard
we're busy.
Yeah. It is.
Oh, I'll have to look into it.
I have another question for you. I've known you forever, Nasty, obviously, but I never, we never talk about this kind of stuff. Now, when you are equipment manager, obviously you have, all the players and everything you met, but as coaches come and go, like, how does that affect you, and how are they? Like, I was just talking with Mike Keenan this weekend, and obviously we all know about Mike Keenan. And I never I was a teenager when he was here, so, but you know how he was as a coach, but like hanging out with, he was so funny and laid back, and just like hanging out with him outside of that was like, he's just awesome. Like, I love him. But like, did that happen with coaches with you, where it was like totally intense?
It's like, it's weird. Like, you have a coach, and then you hate to see anyone lose their job, and then that happens. So now you're like, it's a little bit of a panic too, because you're like, God, I hope they like me. If they don't, they probably have a guy they really like that they might try to bring in, and teams do that sometimes. Like, sometimes coaches will be like, hey, I got to bring my guy, or a GM coming in, same thing. So I've been very fortunate to be around some unbelievable coaches. Even though I was an equipment guy, I feel like I learned so much about the game. I mean, for God's sakes, I was around Roger Nielsen in Florida, had him as a coach. And then he was back here in Philly, Billy Barber, Johnny Stevens, Peter Laviolette, Ken Hitchcock. You can say what you want about Hitch, but he was a very smart.
Hitch was, he was coaching when you were there, Riles, I think.
Yeah, I had him
for
a little bit. Yeah. I guess my first 8 games in the NHL, I had him, and then he lasted 3 games the next year, and then maybe 8 games the next year, and he got fired, and John Stevens came in.
And Dave Hackstall, really good hockey mind. People were all over him here, but he's just a great guy. Craig Berube is one of my best friends, and he's just an unbelievable coach. So I've been around a lot of, even AV, I was with him for a half season, and even the assistant coaches that come through that you meet, it's always, you hate to see when guys lose their jobs, and there's a little bit of worry there for yourself too, because you want to make sure they like you, and you have to learn their routine, because you get used to a routine, and then that changes. But I always had really good luck and really good people as far as coaches go. Even Hitch liked me, and Hitch didn't. We've talked about Hitch so many times, but he called me Young Derek, and the guys got a kick out of it. I would just because people just kind of stayed away from Hitch a little bit, but I'm a pretty hyper guy, Corey. So I'll never forget it. Before the first game, it was my first game as the head guy with the Flyers. We were playing in Pittsburgh. And it was the 40th season, because Peter Forsberg was named the captain, and I was wound up. I must have had 5 cups of coffee. I was like Riley before a game. I had the Red Bull going.
Foaming at the lips.
I had everything going. I'm fired up. It's not even, we haven't even dropped the puck to game 1, and we're gonna win the cup, man. I'm fired up. But I go into Hitch, and I'm like. He's reading one of the game sheets, and Terry Murray's in there, John Stevens, and I think it might have been Reggie Lemelin. I can't remember who our other coach, and Adam Patterson. Yeah, Adam Patterson's there. So I come in and I'm like, hey, what? You know, like fucking hits his paper like this,
popcorn's flying around.
Handful of popcorn goes flying. He goes, Jesus Christ, young Derek. What's wrong with you? And I said, come on, Hitch, let's go. We got to be ready here. You got to be calm, cool, and collected. Jesus. Like, stay off that effing Red Bull, for God's sake. And I'm like, I'm literally writing this. I'm like, let it go, Hitch, you know. And he goes,
off the Red Bull.
Get the fuck out of here. Jesus, you know. So, and he's laughing, though. And I remember, like, players going, dude, no one does that to him. I'm like, well, I just did, and he yeah. I mean, I got along great with him. So it didn't last long, unfortunately, for him. But then Johnny Stevens stepped in, and that was a tough year, the 40th year. But then that summer is when Paul Holmgren brought in Chemo, Hartsey, Lupul during that season, Upshaw, Coburn, Marty Biron. So it turned it around. We went from the worst team to go to the conference finals, and we had a lot of injuries. We lost to Pittsburgh that year. But anyway, it was fun meeting all those coaches and being around them. You feel like you learn a lot.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a hockey nerd, and I always would like listen in and kind of like try to know our game plan, even though it had nothing to do with me. Hey, just get me a towel, for God's sakes, or a water bottle. You don't need to know our game plan.
Don't break it down for me.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's interesting with you being so long, just how the feel of the locker room and the vibe, how it changes with different players and coaches and GMs, and sometimes where there are times where people are walking on eggshells and times where you're more relaxed, and so you experienced all that up and down.
Yeah, for sure. When Hexy came in, like Hexy was great to me, but he had certain things that he wanted done certain ways, and when your boss wants things done that way, that's just what you do. And you were a little nervous at first, but once you learned his ways, so to speak, it was easy. Some people had problems with it, but he was great with me. He was always honest, and door was always open. But other than that, everybody, Mr. Clark was awesome to work for. Everybody was awesome to work for with the Flyers organization. I can't say a bad word about him, but sometimes there's a little different atmosphere. If Homer was pissed off, the atmosphere changed. Riley can tell you about that.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't even picture him mad. He's so mild.
The fun police.
God,
it's like a morgue. Yeah, it's like we lose the night before, and the next day at the rink was like, do we smile? Do we laugh? Do we joke? Or?
Coming in the room with a stick. I remember the one time, even it was with the Phantoms, and he ran the Phantoms. He was the assistant GM to underneath Mr. Clark, and he came in the room, and I was straightening the sticks up, and I had one in my hand, and the door flew open, and I kind of jumped back, and he grabbed that stick out of my hand, and I'm like, oh boy. He would come around, he'd point it like right in guys' faces. He went around the room. Riles saw a couple of those.
Really?
But
just calling out whoever he felt calling out.
Exactly, but it's funny because as he got about halfway through, he wasn't as pissed as he was. So then it started to kind of get comical because he would say things, and you could tell, knowing him, he's trying not to laugh, but there's some of the things he would say.
He wasn't shy about it.
No, he was not shy, and it was different back then too. Now you have to watch anything you say to anyone. In that setting, even though you're in a locker room where it's supposed to be sacred and everything stays there. It's
different world.
Yeah, a little different now.
Well, you, Riles, too, assistant coach with the Phantom. So did you ever get pissed like that? Or how did you react to someone that either wasn't showing up, or like, how were you?
You know what? I think as an assistant coach, there's not so much pressure on you. You're kind of like that middle guy, the buffer zone. I mean,
right.
I think I got more pissed off about like cheap shots and stuff like that out there that guys weren't responding to. It's like almost like ignoring it. I think I got a little more irritated with that because I feel like I should have been, on the ice doing something about it. But like, I don't think I was as emotionally invested as like the head coach, because it's like just so much pressure on the head coach, right? I mean, they're running the lines. They're the ones who, if you lose the jobs, their jobs mainly on the line. Not that mine wasn't, but I think as an assistant coach, you have the ability to be a little more relaxed, And I mean, so yeah. When you see guys not giving 100% effort and losing puck battles, it's annoying, because it's no one wants to lose, and the losses are reflective of the whole team. So, But that being said, it's like I didn't get as emotionally invested as like I see that the head coaches get, because like again, like everything is on them. So
who were the head coaches while you were there?
Oh, geez. I had Greg Gilbert for maybe 10 games, and then he got fired my first year coaching. John Paddock came in, and a guy named Joe Patterson that was actually up in Glens Falls, New York there, came in, and Terry Murray came back around, had him. Who else? And Scott Gordon. I think that was it. So a good chunk of guys I could learn from, and we're all different in their own ways of Terry Murray for the most part was a pretty relaxed guy, having been in the NHL, coaching the NHL for how many 25 years or so. Just different styles, right? That old school way, he'd flip out sometimes, but he was actually pretty calm. Because there's a fine line of, and I learned this, as a hockey player, a fine line of like letting emotion's part of it, but there's a fine line of that emotion spilling over into being unproductive, right? And to yelling at the refs and worrying about things that you can't control. And the same thing with coaching. Seeing coaches like just losing it on the refs all the time, and you can't even run the bench because they're so focused on the refs and the opposition and this and that. But it really is learning how to control your emotions, because it's an emotional game. And like I said, the emotions could be harnessed and funneled one way, or they could be certainly working against you. And you see that probably more often than not, it works against you.
Well, it's
the refs.
It's got to be frustrating, because I love Joe Kocur too, and when he was an assistant in Detroit, like he looked like guys were taking liberties with his players, and like I thought he was going to come out in the third with his gear on, like, and start just dummying guy, and then he went after Joel Quenneville, I think, on the other bench. And I'm like, man, this guy's scary. But as far as coaching, I think what you're doing, helping and coaching players transition from the game of hockey into life is amazing. Is something, as assistant coach, I picture you as the buffer, as the player's coach who gets it with the players. But like I said, what you're doing now and helping these players transition from the game is a huge role. That's the biggest coaching job you could get, right? So good on you for doing that, man. That's huge what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's you don't realize when you're playing the game how quickly the game can end, and then realizing that there's a whole other world out there that you've really never been introduced to, right? Because when you're an athlete and you've been playing a game you've loved your whole life, and you've had your hand held pretty much the whole time, schedule given to you telling you what clothes to wear and where to be at certain times, all of a sudden it's over. Like, guys really struggle. And a lot of guys leave the game with substance abuse issues, right? So they got drinking issues or pill issues or whatever else, and then they're trying to find themselves on the other side of the fence, and not really having the proper tools, right? The toolbox is empty because they really don't teach you a whole lot of how to take care of yourself, right? You realize that you're just a spoke in the machine, and you're just there to fill a void in the game, and you're replaceable, and then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. They don't give a shit about you when it's over. So guys are really struggling. So part of the transition now for me is it's getting them when they're retired and helping them as much as I can. But it's also planting the seed with these guys, earlier in their careers. So like when shit does hit the fan, if it's an injury, like say Eric Wellwood with the Phantoms back in the day, blows out his Achilles tendon and severs all these different tendons and has to retire at the age of 22. Like maybe they have some sort of foundation to build, to build off of. Or ways to be able to manage the daily grind. I'm teaching yoga now and got a gig say once a week with the Phantoms. It's just like, okay, well, teaching yoga right now for them is, you know, restorative and about recovery, but there's a lot of stuff you can take out of that
100%,
you know, for the future, right? I mean, it's learning how to be in control of your own health and understand your own body and being more in tune with your body. Because I mean, Nasty knows me when I played. Like, as much as I worked out and trained, I was an idiot. Like, I look back and like my habits were not very good as far as like being sustainable, right? I mean, and when worrying about self-preservation, it was just like I drove myself into the ground. Where now there's so much focus on recovery and, you know, and lengthening your career and prevention of injury. Which, like, for me, it was not, that wasn't even a thought, right? It was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live forever. I'm gonna play forever. I'm gonna fight everyone 30, 35 times a year, and I'm gonna be able to do this long term. But it's not realistic, obviously. So you have to have some tools.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, Kim's dad was, you know, the best goalie in the league, and he had the eye injury, right?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, and he did have the drinking issue afterwards. I mean, thankfully, he did what he did with Philly, and he had Ed Snyder's holding his hand through it all, and he was able to get back into the game and become the goalie coach and all that stuff. But a lot of players don't have the luxury of an Ed Snyder, you know, helping you, because if not, who knows what, you know, where he would have gone. But when you're all of a sudden playing, and then the next day you wake up and you realize you can't play again, it's like, what do I do now?
I'll tell you, I can't imagine for a player, especially because even at what I did, I was just an equipment manager. But the day,
first of all, put that just out, Nasty, because that place can't run without you. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, thank you. But what I was going to say was that first day where I couldn't go back to the rink. Mm-hmm. My head was going to spin off my shoulder. I was, like Riley said, you're so used to a routine, and I was losing my mind because I did not know what to do, and I had plenty to do, but I regrouped fairly quickly, and I started something, and you know, everything. Still miss being around. I missed parts of it. I missed the fun stuff, the mornings, shooting the shit with the boys and that stuff and games, but everything else is, I think it kind of happened for a reason, and that's so cliche. People say that, and people were telling me that at the time, and I didn't want to hear it. So
I might have said those words to you.
I believe yeah.
Well, I was gonna say the challenge too is that, like, your identity is tied into this, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, Kim saying your dad is like, well, like you're like, this is like kind of who you think you are, right? It's like, I'm a goaltender for the Philadelphia Flyers, Broad Street Bullies, Stanley Cup championship team, and I'm a fighter for the Philadelphia Flyers, the Phantoms, or whatever. Like, you tie your whole identity into this job, and you embody it. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, not only do I have like a substance abuse issue and, you know, I don't know what to do. It's like, I feel like I'm living in the past. Like, I feel like I'm still living as that same person. It's an identity crisis is what you see. So a lot of guys go really dark because like, you've been this hockey player since you're 4 years old. I mean, I go back to Winnipeg. Everyone's probably still thinks I'm playing hockey. He's like, I'm like, Riley, go do the hockey player. It's like, no, I'm not. And I'm Riley. You know, I played hockey, but that's not who I am. But even for myself, like, I got into coaching a little bit, but it took a while for me to kind of like start chiseling away that old, you know, I guess that snake, you're kind of letting go of that snake skin and just kind of like, you know, moving on in life. And like, that was just something I did. And it was a great experience. But I mean, I think the challenge is a lot of guys identify themselves with that job. Right. And then it's hard to get rid of. There's so much ego in it, you know?
I was just going to say, a lot of ego and your worth and everything is kind of put in that. And then when it's stripped away, and like my dad, he's still, even though he played in the league for so long, his English wasn't great. His public speaking, like, they wanted him to do stuff like that. And he's like, he could barely talk in front of 10 people. Now he can talk in front of 1 million and not think twice about it. I mean, as we all know.
And the life lessons you learn after the game, right?
Yeah.
Your dad couldn't speak to people, now he does. And Riley, you did touch on something too, is I train a lot of guys and everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to get big and strong. It's like, I'm here to prevent injuries. That's my focus, is to make your joints and tendons, to make your muscles stronger, to prevent injuries. I'm not trying to make you into this mass Hulk. So when you touched on that, that's just something guys really don't get that either, right? It's
ego, right? It's like, that's the illusion. I got wrapped up in that, and I understand I was a fighter, so there was maybe some element of truth to that. But then I also started observing UFC fighters as like arguably the most diverse, functional, all-around athletes on the planet. But I was so consumed with like, being a certain weight. And I think young kids still, it's like, you got to be this certain weight. And it's like, if I got, any advice at all for young hockey players or any young athlete, is like, be as functional as you possibly can, balance core strength and balance, like legitimately being like, in hockey, a one-legged sport, you're on one leg half the time, being like the best balance, best shape, lean, efficient. And we're like exactly what you said. Worry about prevention of injury. You know what I mean? Like self-preservation. But it's not. It's like, it's for the birds. When you start thinking about like, my coach told me I got to be 15 pounds heavier. It's like I look at my my career. I was like way too heavy to be a hockey player. Yes, I was fighting some mutants and I needed to pack on some extra poundage. But like there was also this battle of like sacrificing functionality and being sports specific movement to not just hockey but fighting. Because I was just like so consumed with lifting weights and being heavier. So I could have legitimately been a better hockey player and or a better fighter, more functional player, had I adopted that that type of mindset. But it's for the birds, man. It's like especially in hockey, like lean, efficient, mobile.
But do you think it's changed over the years? Like back when you played and back in like the 80s and 90s, I feel like bigger you were, I feel like the players now are a lot leaner. And is that like
100%? The focus is so much different, right? I mean, even like I'm thinking my last couple years in junior hockey, even all my years in junior hockey, but like even getting into pro, there was a lot of heavy lifting, right? You go to training camp and you're squatting heavy. You're doing bench press. Like you would never find a bench press in a sports locker room anymore. In a hockey locker room, bench press is for the birds. Like you don't do that, right? And it was just like this focus on weight. It was always like, oh yeah, you got to be this certain weight. But like that doesn't translate to being a functional.
What's that do to your knees? It's got to kill your knees, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. So that's exactly self-preservation. Is like you don't want to tax your knees where it's like now you're blowing out your knee 3 years down the road, or you're not able to move as fast and quick on the ice because you're squatting so heavy.
The technology I use. I show kids that. I have kids 165 pounds. I had a kid come to me. He wanted to go to the East Coast League. He said, I got to be 195. I said, okay. Yeah, I said, you know what? Let me train you all summer, and we'll see what we got. We improved his strength by like 40%, full body, legs, lower body, everywhere. 40% improved his strength, and he was 187. He was like, I go to camp. Calls me after camp. He goes, I'm the fastest I've ever been. And he goes, I fit. Yeah. I'm like, but I got guys 165 pounds. And because I can track, I got guys stronger at 165 than guys are 210.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. So and that's the illusion. That's the illusion that you need to like strip away. And Nasty knows this. I think it was my second year with the Flyers after my first year, which was arguably my best all around season fighting legitimate heavyweights. I was in like 212 to 215, probably still a little heavier than I should have been as a functional athlete. But then I go into the next season, I'm like, I got to be bigger and stronger next year because I'm fighting these guys again. I remember like really the day of and the day before my weigh-ins, going to Burger King drive-thru and getting like Whopper or whatever it was, double Whopper with cheese and bacon on it just to get an extra 2 pounds just to like.
There was more than one.
Yeah.
Getting more than one.
That's how screwed up my thinking was, right? I mean, it was like this illusion that like I need to be a certain size. And that translated into performance, which is a bunch of bullshit. And I mean, I'll be the first one to be honest with myself with it. Is this like, it's delusional thinking, right? I could have been 10 pounds, 15 pounds lighter and been a way better athlete, way better hockey player.
Well, the UFC thing, that's a perfect way to look at it. I mean, there was a fight, what, was it Saturday night? Was a heavyweight fight?
UFC?
UFC?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy that lost, when I like saw him, like he didn't even look in good shape, and there's the other guy who comes out, but those guys are, they're lean, but they're so strong and they're such great athletes. Like it's amazing to watch what they can do.
So here's something, Riles. I'm training a kid, Sam Tonelli. He just got drafted to the London Knights, and he just went and did their strength test combine, and he blew it out of the water. He the running, everything. Then when it got to the bench press, it's 150 pounds. No matter how much you weigh, you could be 210, you could be 130. Well, he didn't do very well in the bench press. So I'm like, listen, that does not matter whatsoever. I said, it doesn't matter how many times you put up 150 pounds. I said, they're not even gauging kind of your weight, right? So that was just when you said
they're still doing bench press, honestly.
It's 150 pounds, no matter what weight you are. It's how many times you can do it.
Corey, I'm a big basketball fan. And I remember it's been years now when Kevin Durant, who Kevin Durant is, right?
Yeah.
One of the best players. So he came out of, I believe he played at Texas. So he came out after his freshman season. I mean, the guy's 6'10", 6'11", but he's thin as can be. So he goes to the test. He goes to do all his tests, and he can't bench press. He can't get it up once, like whatever the weight was. I don't remember what it was.
He's probably got a range of motion.
You know what I mean? So they were talking about it on the TNT. It was Charles Barkley and that whole crew who I love to watch. And Charles Barkley said, I don't care. All that kid needs to do is be able to bench press a basketball.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. He's playing basketball. He doesn't need to bench press anything but a basketball.
Yeah, it's so true.
It is true. And like Riley said, I'm surprised they're even doing that anymore because
there's still guys who I got to run 5K. I got to run 10K. I got to get in shape for the season. I'm like, when do you ever run 5K? And my dad used to do it. I'm like, you're a goalie.
Yeah, right.
He would run all summer. I'm like, but he does the least amount of skating over anyone. But
they used to, years ago, I mean, all the development camps, even training camp, guys are running on the
tons
cement.
of running.
Think about how bad that is.
Yeah.
Sprints, I understand on the turf.
Intervals.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. But you're taking these guys on a 6-mile run, their knees just banging on the
knees
cement.
And hips. That's why they'll have hip replacements and knee replacements.
So stupid.
Yeah.
And my dad and like Billy Barber and those guys, Brooks and I have talked about this before. Our dads they would be out of shape all summer. I mean, they never put on skate.
I wonder why. I wonder why.
And then it comes to training camp, and they're all out of shape. They walk into training camp, and they're running with like trash bags over them, trying to just sweat as much as they can, and they're like. The stuff that they did, like
just taxing their bodies way beyond anything they should be.
And that's what they
doing nothing all summer,
Yeah, that's what Bill. I remember
that was
Billy,
the mentality.
Yeah, I remember Billy and your dad and those guys, Mr. Clark, saying we went to camp to get in shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you have to be ready day one. There's none of that. It's a 12-month-a-year job now.
You don't show up ready.
You wouldn't have a sniff if you show up in a camp. I mean, how many guys like we have there? It was only a handful of guys that showed up in camp in bad shape, and they send the guys home like that. Matt Conan. Like if your body fat's like in the dimension that it's basically unacceptable. And a couple of these maybe skating tests that they do on the ice, but like you're expected to be in like the best shape, and it's and if not, like you don't even have a chance. Like it's just a different mentality. But now it's so much about recovery.
Jonesy was talking about he would show up. He's like, I showed up, I took my shirt off, and all the guys were like, whoa.
Yeah.
We gotta
hit a fitness test with you.
I saw Jonesy last week. He actually looks better now than he did when he played.
Yeah, he looks better every year, I feel.
Yeah, he does.
His weight
he
looks good,
He's so funny.
Yeah,
he is.
That's awesome. Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know how much time you guys have or whatever. Like I said, I'm in no rush, but I just know if you guys, had to zip out. I know you got kids, Kim. You got kids.
Well, I just wanted to, real quick before we go, obviously your podcast, which has been like an awesome success, and talking about something that you're doing after being the equipment manager, and I know the skating, the Settlemyre.
It's okay. It's okay. Hey, when you haven't seen me in 4 years, it's okay. Like,
I'm not taking the blame for that anymore. No, but
Settlemyre skate sharpener.
That's like I can't say
Yeah.
Specific. I can't say. Anyway.
She just wants me. She's giving me more editing to do.
Yeah, there you go. It's okay. It's okay.
But between that and the podcast, all the stuff you have going on, obviously you're keeping yourself busy. I mean, no one doubted that you wouldn't do some, awesome, fun stuff afterwards and be successful. So the podcast has been great. I'm sure you guys are having a blast with that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'd say when you had Brew on in the beginning there, like I said, Riles, you wore 32. When he first came up, he wore 32.
Yeah.
And I always joke, I mean, man, this guy's been Philly forever, leaves for a year, wins a cup.
Yeah.
I know, right?
It sounds fitting for everybody.
That's our story.
Yeah.
We could have had you could have Chief on for 6 straight hours and just get story after story. He's one of the funniest humans I've ever been around in my life. Oh my God.
The very first portrait I ever drew when I had my big crush on him when I was a teenager. I could find that.
You have a mullet?
You saying that?
Yeah.
I think you did. I think you did.
Yeah.
Huge mullet.
Couldn't even read his name. You couldn't read his name.
Yeah, right? That's true. That's
But
true.
no, and like I said, great job on the podcast stuff. And Nasty, like you doing your business out of your house, honestly, it kind of inspired me. I'm running mine right out of my garage now. I got awesome. some top elite players coming through, so it's you got to do what you got to do. So good for you. And Riles, love everything you're doing, helping players, and just the whole health and
obviously your body
optimal
checks
lifestyle.
on this and everything with that is awesome. I mean, Riles, we've had talks before about we have a lot of the same beliefs health wise and all of that. So I love how much you do and how much you make public and put out there, and it's awesome work.
I could talk to you guys for hours.
Do it again. 2.0.
That's great. Yeah. No,
sure.
that was awesome. So
absolutely
perfect.
And I'll see you soon, Nasty.
I'm not holding my breath, Ken. I turned blue the other day.
You're such a liar.
I should have worn my Stone shirt for you today, though. I
was going to
totally
wear
forgot.
my Stone shirt for you.
I totally forgot. Anyway, you guys are doing a great job as well, and we really do appreciate you having us on. That's awesome.
Well, we appreciate it too. So thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
Appreciate it, guys.
We'll see you guys soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.